File item 34, pass and retain. Moving to file item 35, that's ACR 94. Clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 94 by Assemblymember Gallagher and others relative to California Manufacturing Day.
Mr. Gallagher, you may open on the resolution.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm proud to present ACR 94, which recognizes the important contributions of California's manufacturing sector and designates October 2nd as Manufacturing Day. Manufacturing, as many of you know, is crucial to California's economy as it provides hundreds of thousands of jobs as well as billions of dollars in revenue to our state. California is home to 30,000 manufacturing and technology-based companies, which account for over 10% of the total economic input of the state. Importantly, this industry employs more than 1.2 million workers. 1.2 million workers, members, in this state with high-wage and middle-class jobs, that ladder of jobs that we've been talking about to help bring people out of poverty and provide for their families. It's an essential partner with us in addressing the middle skills job shortage. ACR 94 recognizes these significant contributions of this diverse and multifaceted industry and recognizes the need to implement policies that will help manufacturing and technology thrive in our state. One of those things is job training and vocational education. I know in my own district with the community college system are doing great things. I know at Yuba College, Dan Turner has done amazing things with his welding program, providing young men and women with an opportunity and great job opportunities to move forward. ACR 94 also designates October 2nd as Manufacturing Day, a day during which manufacturers across this state open their doors to help Californians learn about their industry. Manufacturing Day is also a celebration to help inspire future generations to get involved in manufacturing, which will ensure that high-paying manufacturing jobs stay right here in California. These businesses and employees are dedicated to improving and innovating our industry. This resolution recognizes their contributions and helps spread awareness about the critical role manufacturing plays in California's economy. And with that, I just ask for your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Gallagher, would you like co-authors on the item?
Authors.
Very good. First roll will be open for co-authors members. Clerk will open the roll. All members wishing to add as co-authors on ACR 94. This is for co-authors members on ACR 94. Clerk will close the roll. There are 76 co-authors added. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. File item 36 is passed and retained. We are moving to file item 37, AJR 26. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 26 by Assemblymember Weber and others relative to the Confederate flag and symbols.
Dr. Weber, you may open.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, I rise today to present to you AJR 26, the Confederate States of America flag removal. Most of us are aware of the history of this country, and one of its most darkest hours that occurred in the 1860s was the war between the states, the Civil War, in which the primary issue in that issue was the enslavement of Africans in this country. The division between the North and the South was pretty severe and caused the South to revolt against the North. In the Civil War, a number of flags were erected at various kinds of designs, all of them using stripes and stars, and eventually rested upon one that became what we call the Stars and Bars, which was known as the Confederate flag. Since that time, the Stars and Bars of flag has been utilized in a variety of ways. More importantly, it became very prominent in the 1960s when, during the Civil Rights era, to emphasize the opposition to the rights of African Americans and others in this country around the passage of the Civil Rights Bills. It has been used by numerous groups, the Nazis, the KKKs, the Neo-Confederates, to basically elicit fear, purport hate, and to promote discrimination in various races and ethnic groups, specifically towards African Americans in this country. For years, African Americans have felt that the Confederate flag had no place in this country, at least not to be displayed with honor, but only as a recognition of the history of where we've been and where we must never go again. It was only more recently in this country that we became obviously very consciously aware of the impact of that flag on individuals' lives. When Dylan Roof, a white supremacist, who idealized the Confederate flag, opened fire on the historic Emmanuel African American Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where 9 African Americans were murdered by the hands of this young man who revered the Confederate flag. As a result of that, more recently, South Carolina has voted to remove the flag from its Capitol grounds, and the Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, has pushed a resolution through Congress this week to remove the flag as well. What this resolution does, it puts basically California on the records of calling on the legislature to encourage the United States Congress to identify the states that have the Confederate symbol embedded in their state flags. We ask the U.S. Congress to identify and encourage states to ban the use of the Confederate States of America symbolism and seals from all flags, seals, and symbols. It urges the U.S. Congress to ban the sale and display of the Confederate flag from federally owned property and buildings, and to use those states that sell or display the flags at their capitals to have the flags removed, to urge them to have it removed. It encourages the United States Congress to encourage businesses to urge their states to take down the flags from their capitals, and encourage the donation of any efforts representing the former Confederate flags of America to local, state, and national museums. This bill is widely supported by a number of ethnic groups here in the Capitol, the African American Caucus, the Latino Caucus, the LGBT Caucus, the API, the Women's Caucus, as well as a number of members who support this particular flag, this issue. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on AJR 26, the Confederate States of America flag removal.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. The joint resolution requires a roll call vote. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. Resolution is adopted. File item 38, ACR 93. Clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 93 by Assemblymember Holden relative to fire safety.
Mr. Holden, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. ACR 93 encourages California's local governments to recognize and re-examine ordinances regarding the use of fire suppression technology. Local governments play an important role in the development and implementation of fire suppression regulations across California. In the wake of fire incidents in buildings adhering to older building codes, cities across the state need to ensure that buildings are up to code and properly equipped to prevent future incidences. ACR 93 asks that existing fire suppression ordinances be re-examined to ensure that life-saving technologies can be utilized to the greatest extent possible. I'd like to thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote and opening roll for co-authors.
Mr. Holden is asking that the first roll be open for co-authors members. The clerk will open the roll. All members wishing to add as co-authors. This is for co-authors members on ACR 93. ACR 93 co-authors. The clerk will close the roll. There are 65 co-authors added. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Before moving to Senate third reading, we're going to move quickly back to motions and resolutions. Mr. Holden, you are recognized for your additional procedural motions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62A, the file notice requirements, and allow the Appropriations Committee to notice and to hear AB 199 Eggman at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, August 19, 2015, in room 4202.
Without objection, the request is granted.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to withdraw Senate Bill 405, Hertzberg, from the Appropriations Committee and place on the second reading file. The bill is no longer fiscal.
Without objection, such shall be the order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, also in motions and resolutions, noting one absence for the day, Assemblywoman Gaines for illness. We are moving to Senate third reading. File items 39 and 40 are pass and retain. We're moving to file item 41. That's SB 186. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 186 by Senator Jackson and others, enacting the community college districts.
Mr. Mainshine, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 186 is part of our continuing commitment to address student sexual violence. This measure has received bipartisan support in committees and on the Senate floor. According to research cited by the U.S. Department of Justice, as many as 1 in 7 female students is raped while in college, and 20% of female students are victims of sexual assault. This bill is not asking community colleges to do anything other than what other California colleges and universities are currently required to do. It seeks to make this authority consistent. It applies to acts committed while a student is currently enrolled, and all students in California deserve a safe campus community, and SB 186 provides community colleges with one of the tools needed to ensure that safety. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayshine. Ms. Waldron, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in support of SB 186. There should not be a double standard in our state when it comes to protecting students. SB 186 will align the authority of community colleges with the authority of colleges within the UC and CSU system to allow them to adequately respond to acts of sexual violence involving one of their students and to protect other students on campus so that all students in California can pursue an education in a safe and harmonious environment. I urge an aye vote.
All discussion having ceased, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. File items 42 through 45, pass and retain. File item 46, SB 196, for the purpose of amendments. Clerk will read with amendments.
Senate Bill 196 with amendments by Assemblymember Brown.
Ms. Brown, you may open on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 196 is authored by Senator Hancock. It's a bill that will allow the Adult Protective Service agencies to file a petition for protective order under specific circumstances. The amendments address chaptering out issues with 2 other bills, the 494 from Mainshine and the AB 1081 by Quirk, and will also add an additional co-author. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on these amendments so that bill can go out to print and back on file.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Seeing no discussion, without objection, we may take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File items 47 and 48, pass and retain. File item 49, SB 505. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 505 by Senator Mendoza, enacting 2 elections.
Mr. Thurman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of SB 505. This is a bill that provides action to make sure that every person has the right to vote. We've discussed that at great length today as we've talked about the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We've also talked about the importance of ethnic minorities and women and others not having any barricade or blockage to their ability to vote. SB 505 by Senator Mendoza provides the Secretary of State with the authority to inform voters using plain language text to describe the Voter Bill of Rights. Under current law, the Secretary of State is required to print verbatim statutory language, which must be printed in full for all voter information guides and posted at all polling places. Even though the statute is written with voters in mind, the provisions are still worded in complicated legislative language that inadvertently prevents unnecessary challenges to voters who are trying to understand the law as it affects them. This bill allows the Secretary of State to use plain language techniques and will help ensure voters are better informed about their key electoral rights. The bill has no opposition. It's supported by the Secretary of State, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, and the League of Women Voters of California. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And no surprise, this bill is supported by the Secretary of State because what it does is give him the power that previously had been reserved to us. And if you think there might be something wrong with that, if you think that might be a violation of principles of separation of powers, you'd be right. If you might think that there's something wrong with that as the legislature, We are the ones put here to write the laws, and we are the ones who are responsible to our constituents when we have to stand for re-election, and that there might be something wrong with certainly giving that power over to somebody else. You'd also be right. I oppose the bill not because we like ambiguity in the law. Heaven forbid this body write a bill that's not entirely clear. I oppose the bill simply because it's an abdication of our responsibility. We are the lawmakers. We wrote the bill. Indeed, the underlying bill was a bipartisan bill, and what we're saying is go ahead, executive branch. Go ahead and undo our work and substitute it. Go ahead and do what you think is right, irrespective of what we, who are elected to say what the law should be in this state, think is right. It's a complete and total violation of separation of powers, a complete and total abdication of our responsibility. And you might trust the Secretary of State today because you like the party he's from or you like the individual. And I am casting absolutely no aspersions on our good friend who many of us have served with, former Senator and now Secretary Padilla, but you're not always going to like the person or the party that holds that position. And you're certainly not going to like the principle that you're establishing with this bill, that we're just going to punt to the executive branch the right and the responsibility to clear up our ambiguities, to fix the things they think we've done wrong. No, my friends, that's our job. If we don't like something in a statute, we should change it. We should have the guts to put a vote up on that board and then to go out and stand in front of our constituents and say, here's what I did, here's why I did it, rather than just say, oh, sorry, that was decided by the Secretary of State. Oh, sorry, for the next bill, that was decided by the Attorney General. Oh, sorry, for the bill coming down the road, that was decided by the Treasurer. We have no responsibility. Don't give it up. Don't give up your power. That's why the separation of powers is a fundamental principle in our federal and our state constitution, and it is to protect you. It is to protect your constituents, and it's to protect the folks who will come after you and sit in these seats. Don't give that away. Vote no on this one.
Seeing no additional debate on this item, Mr. Thurman, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect to the comments from my distinguished colleague, this bill does not authorize any new powers for anyone in the executive branch. I urge you to vote for it on its measures. In fact, this bill is doing exactly what my colleague suggested we do, that we take the power that we have been granted by the voters of California to clarify the rights of our voters. And that's our opportunity. This bill specifically directs the Secretary of State to take the actions directed by this body to do so. This bill is consistent with everything that we have discussed on this very afternoon. We talked about the barriers that have existed for African American voters, for Latino voters, for Asians, for women. We talked about the important contributions that Filipino Americans have made in this country. And as someone who's been proud to serve with the first Filipino American legislator in California, to represent communities that have time and time again, for the first time, elected Filipino Americans in local government, I get the importance of making the language here simple for our voters to follow and to ensure that we protect the voting rights of everyone who has the right to do so. I respectfully urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 50, noes 23. Measure passes.